Good evening, everybody. How you guys doing?
Good.
Good. Thanks for coming out here in the middle of the week. I like the presentation that I'm going to give you guys a little bit more of a conversation, and I encourage you guys to, if you are tweeters, I don't know how many of you in the room, have your phones out, and you want to ask questions and discuss some of the things I'm talking about, use the hashtag LaserTalk, and even though I'm not going to be able to be responding to you right now with those hashtags, I will afterwards be able to connect with you. Also, the way I'm going to give the presentation today is I'm going to give a little background about who I am and some of the work that I do, and then some of the other artists that are working in the same type of fields, and if there's time, some of my newer work. So I'm gonna lay the foundation of what my artistic practice is first before I get into some of the more recent projects. So bear with me here, and hopefully there'll be time at the end for questions. I'm going to try to keep this as concise as possible. Okay. So, as an artist, and many artists who work in the art and science realm, the art and technology realm, it's really hard to define what you do exactly. I'm not really an object maker, and I'm not really a public artist. I don't really have a box I can be put into, but when I'm thinking about the different ways that I'm approaching artistic practice and how my mission to basically save the earth by changing art is I look at three elements: sustainability, environment, green technology, material, climate change, data, and then community, empathy, design, how people are reacting to different elements of complex systems, and new media. So looking at that technology, what's emerging, what are some of the new things that are happening, and how can I use this medium to communicate? So I really practice in the intersection of these three things. Now, this is my grandma. She's visiting here this week from Fort Worth, Texas. She's my audience. She is pretty tech savvy. She Skypes all the time. She uses a Kindle. She's pretty witty. But she may not know certain things like what is some of this economic data and strategies and elements that are changing our world. Like, how did the whole bailout happen? What are some of those algorithms and systems that people put together to make that type of event happen? She may not understand how this commercial building runs its energy. What are its utilities? What are things happening with it? How do people determine that type of study? Like, how do you understand that massive amount of data? And something that myself and many other people really don't get still is how to interpret climate change data. How do you really understand the 600-page IPCC report? So I feel it's my responsibility to figure out a way to show my grandma how to understand that. So as an artist, I'm taking this type of information, this type of complex systems, and figuring out ways to make it a lot more simple and a lot more accessible to everyone else. Now, I'm going to start with a project that illustrates this. This is a project that I did for my master's thesis. It's called Berg Building User Response Gadgets. And so what I was really interested in is these commercial buildings. This building that we're in now, the mall that you go to, government buildings, a lot of them are running on smart meters, way bigger than the ones we have in our home. And those are called energy information systems. But we're so detached from our building envelope. It's this thing that protects us, this thing that we come in and out of every day, and there's this system within it. There's inside the walls, there's blood, right? There's the electricity, there's veins, there's the wires, there's piping, okay? There's the bones, the structure inside the wall, which is Rem Koolhaas coined that junk space. How do we connect with that? How do we relate with that? And how do we respond to that? So I took that challenge and I created this project called Berg, which tried to get the person who was just coming into the commercial building to understand its junk space, its coal, water, electricity, steam, how it reacted, and how they can respond in turn. So I did two versions of it. I did a micro version and a macro version. So it's a combination of data visualization, maker art, and in a sense, intervention. So basically, I use the San Jose State University engineering building. I work with their engineering department and their facilities and utilities staff to figure out a way to collect that data and live stream it, and then connect it to their HVA system. And basically what their version is of a smart meter, which is an energy information system. On all of your homes, if you live in the Bay Area, you have one of these, okay? So it's sort of like that, but on a much larger scale. And I'm going to quickly show you a video. See if I can get this full screen. This is a video of what the, allow it, yes. This is a video of what that energy information system looks like. This is taking in, the heart is taking in the outside electricity, and the lungs are taking in the cold water, steam, and electricity. It's being converted into BTUs, and it's changing color and size depending on how much energy the building's using. This was displayed as soon as you walk into the building above the elevator. And I added a little bit of references around it. But the idea was to connect this building's systems to what humans understand, which is their own personal body, cardiovascular and respiratory system. We know what it feels like when we're too hot. We know what it feels like when we're out of breath. So I wanted to have that emotional connection happen with the commercial building. Okay. Let's see. Oh, I want to view from current slide. Sorry. It's always technical. Okay, so then I thought, okay, well, here's the big building envelope, but then we also do have something we can control over, right? Something like our cell phone chargers or lights or computers, things that typically nowadays we leave running all the time. So how do we actually address that problem? So what I did is I took your office system, what you plug in to the wall, so that being a, your computer, your chargers, things like that. And then I connected them to what's called a kilowatt reader, which reads the amount of energy it's using, but I hacked it. I hate the kilowatt reader. I think it's the ugliest thing in the world, and I can't wait to redesign it. But what I wanted it to do is I wanted it to tell me on my app or wherever I was how much energy these things were using. So I had it, I turned it into a tweet-a-watt, and I had it tweet out that information to me, so I can monitor wherever I am. And then what I did is I took this information and I connected it to Arduinos and motors and some solenoids, and then I created a sculpture that moved and shaped according to how much energy my home office system was. So I thought it would be a fun idea to have a small sculpture in your office or your room that you can actually see and monitor how much energy that you're actually using. So that's one example of how I was taking data and environmental data and turning it into something that was easy for my grandmother to read. So basically, this is just sort of a graph on how that works. So you have all the things that you plug in. I put them on a power strip. I sent it to this kilowatt reader. Then that sent messages to Arduinos. It also sent it out to a Twitter feed. And then that sent it up to this kinetic sculpture that changed and moved according to how much energy this was using. So again, taking that same cardiovascular and respiratory system, connecting it back into the human systems. So moving on to another project I've been doing for a long time. This is something that I've actually turned into a business. It started out as an intervention institutional critique project, but I don't know about you, but a lot of artists that I know are very wasteful. They use a lot of toxic materials. They don't throw things in the proper areas. They don't send things to the hazardous waste facility. And they also don't know about the different types of developing green materials that are out there. So what I did is I decided to create a program or a project to address this issue through trying to get artists to change their working practices, working practice through legislative reform, like trying to get the institution to demand a healthy art program, which is education. And then I did green certification. So I came in as the art inspector and did energy audits on these artists' studios. So really what I'm trying to change is the not just the conversation, but the economy. So I want to create a demand for green art products for artists. I am obsessed with green materials and smart materials, trying to find better ways to make them and to distribute them, but they're not made for a small retail commercial level. They're only made for big commercial buildings that contractors or interior designers and architects have access to. Somebody like myself couldn't just go somewhere and buy them. So what I'm trying to do is I'm trying to increase the supply of this, have artists decrease the supply of this, and then create a new economy, a new system through this project. And one of the ways that I've done that, I'm going to skip the video just for time. Let's see. Maybe I won't. Let's see if I can. I'll talk over the video. I think this is the. One of the ways that I do this is
basically look at a variety of artists as opposed to just one specific.
Yeah, it's basically I do energy audits on their studios. I take energy auditing equipment that you would have in your own residential home, like things that measure volatile organic compounds, things that measure ventilation, things that measure energy, occupancy sensors, and I put this in an artist studio. And then I do a material intake of what they're doing and what they're using, and then I give them recommendations and modifications to change that. And in some cases, I've received funding to have artists do that, actual modifications. So this is one of the projects that I have ongoing, and right now I'm working with the city of San Francisco to create a safe art program with them through the Healthy Art program. So this is just another way that I'm looking at a bigger system and trying to find a simpler way to address it. So, any questions on that so far?
What's the non-toxic stuff?
Then the non-toxic stuff is so far been a little bit hard to define. So what I originally was interested in was green materials. Like what is something that has a full cradle-to-cradle cycle, and a lot of things may be okay to put back into the environment, but may not be okay for you to breathe in. And that's been a debate that I've been having with toxicologists and industrial hygienists who I work with quite a bit. Things like pigments, which can be completely safe for you to dispose of in the environment, may not be good for you to work with. So that debate is still happening, and I'm encouraging that conversation. And the type of work that I do, some people call it eco art, and for a long time I call myself an eco artist. Until I went to the College Arts Association conference, and I was listening to all these people talk about eco art, and I was like, I'm not an eco artist, because to them what defined eco art was looking at more the formal elements of things, and no one wanted to talk about this emerging technologies of bioart, biomimicry, and things like smart materials or energy systems. Nobody was having that conversation. When I would bring it up, they'd be like, no, we're not talking about that. That's not what eco art was. So I decided to start calling this type of movement, where you're looking at technology, environment, and art, alter eco art. Because it's still an environmental sense, but it has a lot more technology. So if you hear people talk about that, alter eco art, I'm trying to make it really trendy. So, you want to talk about that a little bit. So one of the really coolest projects that I admire out there, which I think is probably one of the smartest elements of alter eco art, is a land art generator. And this is a public art program for an ideas competition to take big public art installations and have them generate energy, generate electricity. So if you're going to build an iconic landmark, a monument, or something that is going to be permanent in a space, why not have it develop energy? And what does that mean? How do you do that? So they created sort of a model in terms of how they are looking at these different public artworks from around the world. How can they actually do this? And I think this was one of the smartest ideas. So far, none of the actual ideas have been realized, but at least they're starting to be compiled there.
It's a grid tie, right?
Well, they're not all grid. Yeah, they're grid tied. It depends. You know, some are grid tied and some aren't. Like, that's not really the way that they address it. What the requirement is they ask what type of energy generating project are you going to use? How much energy is it going to generate? So you do have to have those calculations. And this is just an example of the 2012 winner of this project, James Murray and Shoda Bashkamadze. Sorry for butchering the name. But looking at this space, looking at hydro energy, and how can that be something that could be both public art and energy generating. And they actually have like a whole like toolkit, if you are an artist, that you can look at to know about what type of either solar, hydro, or any other wind, anything that you can think of out there, how much energy that unit typically produces, and gives you basically a guide, a visual guide of what is available. And I think this is a really good direction I'd like to see public art moving into. So another project that this wasn't my own personal project, but I did work on this. I was a manager for it. Was the San Jose Climate Clock Initiative, and that also was an ideas competition of what would it look like if you made an iconic landmark that measured climate change. So measured energy, measured climate change, but influenced public behavior, lasted for 100 years, and was built to the sum of $20 million. So what would you do? What would you do? So there were 3 artist teams from around the world that spent 2 years really developing this project. And the winner was Organograph, which was Chico McMurtry, Bill Washaba, and Gio Holmesy, who created this moving sculpture that was made of solar, collected climate data. You can climb inside of it. It planted a whole garden along the way, and it would be placed in the developing Diridon train station down in San Jose. And I think that the process of thinking about environmental data in the long term, because it is something that is ever changing, is something that I really want artists and scientists to really think about. How do you create long-term artworks that look at the future of where environmental data is going? And here's another one, Sabrina Raff. She is an architect, environmental artist, and her project Grower, this device here measured the carbon dioxide in the room. You know, as humans, we breathe in oxygen, breathe out carbon dioxide. I need to wrap up. Okay, and then that actually communicated with this robot who drew blades of grass in the room, and the more people were in it, the more active it was. And so it connected robots and our own human systems back to that. So lastly, I'm not going to go into this too much. This is the Refuge and Refuge project I'm working on right now with a collective called the Bridge Collective. This is out of the Albany Bulb. And here we're looking at ecology, social science, homelessness. Working on this with Robin Lasser, Judith Leenan, and Barbara Boissevain. And we've done architectural 3D scans and surveys out of the bulb. Here's an example of one, but I know we're running out of time. So I encourage you to join me. You can tweet me, connect with me on email or anything you want. But I'd like to continue the conversation. And I'm going to do one final plug for something really cool that Leonardo ISATS puts on, which is the Leonardo Affiliate Program, which I actually also run. There's another hat. And that's how many of you work for a university, a department, an institution, a lab? Okay, yes, a lot of you. All right. So if your institution, lab, department, museum, whatever is interested in connecting with other ones around the world, this is that opportunity. So the affiliate program is the institution-to-institution program with top-level universities and scientists and artists really communicating with each other. And there's information in the back, and I'll also be around during the break if you wanted to talk about that as well. So other than that, thank you guys very much. And I know that there wasn't too much time.